Hi, this is Congressman Tom Cole, the 4th District of Oklahoma, and this is another one of our congressional weekly chats. Congress actually had a controversial but fairly productive in some ways week. Uh, the House and the Senate managed to pass legislation to keep the government open, so we have no imminent government shutdown. And it will be open, on again what's called a continuing resolution, which basically keeps things as they are until February of next year. Now, in some ways, that's good. None of us want a government shutdown. In other ways, though, it's simply kicking the can down the road. I actually voted for the first continuing resolution several weeks ago with the idea that it would give us time to negotiate a deal. Sadly, in the interim, no deal has been negotiated. The Democrats have focused much more on passing their Build Back Better bill first through the House. They're now struggling over in the Senate. And so serious negotiations about funding our military, funding all our government obligations have simply not occurred. And, it's frustrating because there is a deal here to be had. The Democrats know to get Republican support, they took out the Hyde pro-life protections that are normally in the appropriations bills and have been for literally decades. Republicans will not vote for any legislation that doesn't include that. Democrats need Republican votes, I think, in the Senate certainly, and I think in the end in the House as well. So those things have to come back in. In addition, the Democrats put a lot of so-called poison pills, that is things they knew Republicans wouldn't vote for, in the appropriations bills. They're going to have to come out. If you need Republican support, and the Democrats do, then neither of those things are productive. Finally, in terms of money, the defense number is going to have to go up. The Democrats passed a defense appropriations bill at the president's requested level, but their own House Armed Services Committee, which they control, the Senate Armed Services Committee, which they control, actually asked for $25 billion more in what's called the authorization bills. And so even Democrats know that the Biden defense request is ridiculous. So that number is going to have to come up, and it may have to come up more than $25 billion given the inflation that this administration has unleashed. Finally, the domestic spending number, and Democrats love to spend money, is just simply way too high. They increased domestic spending by 18% while they were giving defense a effective inflation-adjusted cut in spending. That number is going to have to come down. It doesn't mean it can't increase marginally in some areas, and it doesn't mean we can't find some common ground. But again, at the end of the day, poison pills out, Hyde protections back in. More money for defense, less money for domestic spending. That's the formula that will get us to a deal. Unfortunately, the Democrats, have refused to recognize that reality, and they want to quote unquote negotiate. Republicans have said, fine, take Hyde out of the bill, or put Hyde back in the bill, take the poison pills out, and we'll sit down and start talking money, which is a lot easier to compromise over. But the other matters are just non-starters. They knew it when they did it, and they knew we would get to this point, so it's disappointing they're not prepared at this point to move forward. Looking ahead, the main action in the next couple weeks is actually going to be in the United States Senate. The House last week passed the Build Back Better bill. I call it the bad bill. Other people call it the Build Back Broke bill, which is very clever. That bill is very controversial, and even in the Senate, Democrats are struggling with it. It's already clear that the state and local tax deductions, which favor millionaires and billionaires in blue states, are in trouble in the Senate. There are other measures unlikely to survive the parliamentarians' rulings, which means they're just simply inappropriate on the legislation. Immigration overhaul. There are still other disagreements in terms of the amount of funding and the fact that the House bill has tons of bills that are not, the taxes are authorized to pay for them for 10 years, but the program's only authorized for 1, 3, or 5 years to keep the cost artificially low. All those things have to be worked out. They're all controversial. The Democrats in the Senate have said they want to finish this by Christmas. Count me as skeptical that that's possible, because they have to have every single Democrat agree, and a couple of them have already said publicly and privately that they don't expect to be able to finish. The frustrating thing with that is it's going to put off negotiations on the basic appropriations bills that much longer, in my view. Um, we also will have to see a deal in the United States Senate over the National Defense Authorization Act as the basic framework for our defense, and the debt ceiling. Again, we've passed those measures in the House. The Senate has yet to do it. They may try to couple them together. Probably not a good idea, but it's one way to get the votes. We'll see what happens. But the Senate's got more on its plate than it's likely to be able to chew and swallow in the next couple weeks. And then, when the Christmas break comes, hopefully we'll come back and get serious about the appropriations process and actually funding the government for a year. So it'll be pretty busy. Less so in the House. The House is waiting on the Senate to work through its various issues right now. So I think you'll see a series of probably what are called suspensions, where there's either broad bipartisan agreement or messaging bills, that is bills that the majority, the Democrats, want to pass, but can never get through the United States Senate and to the president's desk, just to make a point. So the House is really, in suspense right now, waiting to see what the Senate does. I remind people that if the Senate finally does get a Build Back Better bill, and that is the president's main agenda, it's still got to get through the House because it's clearly going to change a lot. So it'll come back in a form. No Republican will vote for it. There's nothing that's going to happen to it in the Senate that will generate Republican support. And so the real question will be, are some Democrats offended by the changes the Senate makes to the point that they will not pass the bill? And we just don't know. And until the Senate actually acts and we can see what it's like, it's hard to predict what it's going to be here in the House. But it is fair to say the bill is going to come back in ways that offend some Democratic groups, particularly progressives. This bill, while it won't be a good bill, is apt to get more conservative, move to the right, and some of the more controversial measures in it are going to get stripped out or modified in the Senate. And again, how progressives in the House react to that is anybody's guess. But it's going to be a pretty lively December, could be a very long December, but until the United States Senate acts, it's going to be hard to clarify. Let me make a couple of other points in closing, because not everything obviously important happens in Congress. Two things in particular I want to point out to you that are some cause for concern. First, today, and today is Friday, December 3rd, is actually the day that the so-called jobs report comes out. This is a mixed bag of results. I mean, we got over 200,000 new jobs. The unemployment rate fell marginally. Those are good things, but frankly, the experts have been projecting we'd get over 500,000 new jobs. It's actually the lowest number of new jobs since December of last year. So it's a slowing economy in some ways. Partly that's due to the new variant of the coronavirus, the so-called or Omicron, that's emerged. But I think it actually reflects inflation and longer-term fears about how the economy is going to fare, particularly if the new taxes and regulatory restraints in the so-called BBB bill that we were referring to earlier actually happen. So economy slowing down is not good news for America, and it's something to keep your eye on. And certainly inflation continuing to run at 30-year highs is punishing to many families, particularly if they have not had wage increases commensurate with that, and quite frankly, most of them have not. The second thing I would point you to are some of the things happening overseas. And well, America does things like pull out of Afghanistan in a disastrous way, and frankly, leave a place where we'd been an ally 20 years in the making, and turn over a country of 38 million back to the very people that hosted Osama bin Laden. It has consequences. And I think, and I'm very worried we're seeing some of them right now. We see a massing of Russian troops and armor on the border between Russia and the Ukraine. And we're very worried that the Russians may take American inaction in Afghanistan, or the American decisions, as a sign America is weak, and they may do what they did in 2014 when President Obama was in office, and that is dismember another part of or take another part of Ukraine. If you recall, they took back the Crimean Peninsula and a number of other territories, and nothing's been done about that. Honestly, nothing can be done about that. They may well do the same thing again. It would be quite a challenge to NATO and to the United States, and very provocative action. In addition to that, Chinese military activity continues to escalate around Taiwan, and the desire of the Chinese, particularly President Xi, to retake Taiwan, which has actually been effectively independent since 1949, and absorb it into China is widely known and is to be feared. This is something that could provoke a military confrontation between the United States and China, certainly between our allies and China, all of our allies in the region, Japan, Australia, the Philippines, even countries that are not direct allies but are working partners like Vietnam and certainly Singapore, are extraordinarily concerned about what's happening in Taiwan and would expect the United States to lead. The problem is no one is confident that we will do that, and a lot of this depends on the conclusions that hostile foreign powers draw about the Biden administration, and frankly, the Afghanistan debacle, and that's what it was, has led many of them to believe America is weak, America won't respond, and that tempts them into aggression. It's very dangerous. So I don't mean to darken your Christmas, but I do need to let you know things in Washington are moving fitfully, but not particularly well at the moment. We do have a serious threat overseas that is developing, and sadly the economy is not doing quite as well as we all hoped it would be doing this month, but we'll see. Regardless, we'll keep working hard, and again, it's the United States of America, so I always have faith in our institutions, faith in our people, and confidence that over time things will work out well. This is an extraordinary country, and with extraordinary people and amazing resources at its disposal. So we're still better positioned than any people in the world, but it's been a tough week, and we're in a tougher situation, I would think, than we were honestly a year ago. With that, I look forward to visiting with you next week. Maybe we'll have a little bit better news. Things tend to turn a little bit along the way, but you have a happy holiday season as we get into it. Wish you well and your family well. We'll talk about that more in a later broadcast, but thanks for tuning in. Look forward to visiting with you next week.